So CNN is coming under fire from a lot of people, but most interestingly, it's actually coming under fire from CNN host itself, which is actually kind of good to see. It's one of those things that, I guess people would say that it would make them feel better about mainstream media. Obviously, mainstream media is ass. But here's what it says. It says CNN under ethics scrutiny following Cuomo revelations. So CNN's coming under internal and external criticism over its approach to conflicts of interest for journalists after host Chris Cuomo escaped disciplinary action despite advising his brother, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, on how to handle sexual misconduct allegations. Current and former employees have criticized the host of Cuomo Prime Time for the transgression, but a retired CNN ethics executive says the lack of clear-cut policies are largely to blame. You won't see any rules that are etched in stone so that a violation could be a firing offense, said Steve Holmes, who retired from CNN in 2019 after working at the network for more than a decade. And I think you sort of see the results. The Chris Cuomo thing, he can't say he's violated any written policies because there aren't any, period. Who reported to the executive vice president of news standards and practices when he was at CNN. Last week, CNN staffers started weighing in on Cuomo advising his brother. I cannot imagine a world in which anybody in journalism thinks that was appropriate, Jake Tapper said in an interview. That same week, Brian Stelter, host of CNN show Reliable Sources, suggested a leave of absence might be in order. If Chris Cuomo wants to call into strategy sessions with his brother's aides, shouldn't he take a leave of absence from CNN? Other employees raised their concerns during a town hall last week by asking CNN President Jeff Zucker why the network hadn't sanctioned Cuomo even though he admitted to crossing an ethical line. Temporarily suspending Cuomo would be pointless, Zucker replied, and would only be, quote, punishment for the sake of punishing. That's total bullshit, by the way. Really, you should let Chris Cuomo go altogether. The slap on the wrist is better than nothing, Holmes said, and would serve as an acknowledgement that ethics matter to the network. Yes, that's true. And so this is really embarrassing for CNN. It goes to show you why mainstream media is so garbage, and especially CNN, because CNN is essentially all of their hosts, or most of their hosts, their biggest hosts, are really people who got their job not because they're really good at what they do. It's because they have incredibly powerful ties, and so it's effectively an inherited position. So this goes for Chris Cuomo. Chris Cuomo and his brother didn't get shit on their own. Because their dad, Mario Cuomo, I forget if he was the governor of New York entirely or if he was the mayor of NYC, but, he was a powerful dude, and so Andrew Cuomo, now as governor, he didn't do that on his own, he did it due to familial ties, and, he's the governor of New York, one of the most powerful positions in the United States. And so Chris Cuomo has a job at CNN. Do you think that Chris Cuomo, if he was an average Joe, if his name was Chris Bob, that he would have got the job? I highly, highly doubt it. Anderson Cooper he's a member of the Vanderbilt family, which was an insanely wealthy family. So he comes from an insanely wealthy background. And I don't know the details of some of these other hosts, but I guarantee you they have Wall Street ties or their dad was some really powerful person. CNN is basically just a shell corp for, losers and their families who had to be relegated to news jobs because they couldn't stick up to the standards of the low standard of inheriting the position of having a powerful position in government. So, they didn't really even work for what they got, like, obviously, Andrew, but Chris was such a, Fredo type of guy. I mean, he's literally a host on CNN while his brother's governor of New York. So it's pretty embarrassing, but CNN, and this is the thing, right? So you're talking about Chris Cuomo advising the governor on sexual misconduct allegations and what to do, and you're a journalist, you're a news host telling us the news. You are actively taking part in aiding this person, and yet you are reporting the news. You have a conflict of interest, and you have been compromised. And so you learn in political science how important it is for a free media. In fact, like, a free media is like the cornerstone piece, one of the cornerstone pieces of a real democracy, according to political science and basic common sense. And so when you have literally the governor of New York, his brother is telling you the news about, his stuff and other things going on, it's not really free. And then even the other hosts, like none of the media is really free because it's all corporate owned. It's all shilling interest for corporations. So it's not really free in under any circumstances. So this is very concerning. And the fact that Jeff Zucker, he's obviously getting pressured by Andrew Cuomo. Oh, it wouldn't even be worth it just upon it. What do you mean it wouldn't be worth it, you idiot? It's to it would be to prevent something like that from happening in the future. But Chris Cuomo shouldn't even really be allowed to be a host, period, on one of these major news networks because of his familial tie and his clear loyalty to his brother. And watching him interview his brother on live news and, praise him about the coronavirus stuff, it's so cringy, especially when you hear all the details about what the truth about Andrew Cuomo was during the coronavirus situation. So Chris Cuomo should be fired. Forget, a leave of absence. No, fire his ass. This is not real journalism. This is a conflict of interest. This is like state TV at this point. It's like it's state TV plus like corporate TV, although they're kind of the same at this point, unfortunately. So, it just goes to show you how much of a joke CNN is. It's crazy. They didn't do anything to the guy, and he's advising his brother on how to combat this stuff. Like, dude, you're a news guy. You can't have those kinds of conflict. This is like a Donald Trump situation. It's embarrassing, man.